how can an individual identify or break free from these self-destructive patterns that silently are reducing a health span?
I talk about this idea called the awakening. At some point in an individual's life, they realize that they have a sense of mortality. It comes to different people for different reasons. For one individual, it might just be that a friend of theirs or someone at work has suddenly had a cardiac arrest or some sort of illness. For someone else, it might be the death of a parent. For someone else, it might be an illness themselves, etc. It doesn't matter how you get to that point, but once you get to that point, there's no going back. Um, and therefore, you start to view your choices in life very differently. Most people who come and see me don't tell me, actually, Doc, I want to see you that because I want to live longer. Maybe 10% of people say that because they've seen, the stuff we spoke about earlier. The vast majority of people who come to see me saying, Doc, I don't have the energy that I used to have 10 years ago. Or, I'm a young parent now. My kids are at the age that they want to kick a ball or have me bowl to them. I just can't do it anymore. So this word energy is what I hear a lot in sort of day-to-day parlance. And that can be a fantastic motivation for an individual, right? Getting healthier for your spouse, getting healthier for your kid, getting healthier because you want to do something aspirational like run a half marathon or a 10K race or go scuba diving on a boys trip or any of those things. So that's how I sort of get into that mindset. And then our job is sort of as a coach, counselor, catalyst, is to simplify the science or distill it down to the basics that you can empower an individual to make the right choices forever. Because I can't be with them for the next 50 years. But if I can sow the seeds to help them understand and interpret life around them, look for the data points in their ecosystem, whether it's the wearable data, whether it's their annual or half yearly blood tests, and then start to make smarter choices, my job is done.
Okay, I have the last three questions for you.
Sure.
Let me combine these two questions.
Okay.
Number one, billionaires are investing in this anti-aging research and longevity and will this ever become democratized, or it'll always be for the wealthy? Because all the research that is happening in the West.
Yeah.
India is not putting in that much of effort or money or resources into research.
Yeah.
But as Indian bodies, our health challenges and our in general challenges are far different than what the other countries or other parts of the world are facing. So we following that research, which is based on their genetics, their lives. How do you overcome that?
Sure. My dear friend and mentor, Professor Brian Kennedy, he used to be at the Buck Institute. He's now in Singapore. He often opens his longevity talks with a joke, which is where he says that the model organisms used to be the worm and the lab rat. The model organism today is the Silicon Valley billionaire or the ultra HNI. Often the most evidence that we are now collecting in today's longevity fields are based on things that the ultra rich are doing for themselves, and then trying to extrapolate that at sort of a societal level. So I totally agree with that perspective of what you're trying to start out. And it's important for us all to sort of recognize that. And therefore, whenever you're listening to anyone on social media, including this conversation, always be a cynic. Always think about or question the authority of that individual. And is that individual really using, first principles of science? Or is it just anecdotal information which is being shared with you online, which is very easy, therefore, to sway the individual to then make a choice in? So that's the first thing. The second is, yes, you're right. And I've certainly seen that even after Brian's visit, this is the other Brian now, Brian Johnson, the one you mentioned, after his visit to India, I remember there was a moment on the podcast where he had, I think, Nikhil Kamath, Nitin Kamath, and a bunch of others. And they were talking about, who's the top longevity physician in India. And my name was mentioned there. And there was a massive surge that happened. But when people reached out to me, what was interesting, I thought, they're going to ask for that approach. And like, Doc, we don't want the don't die mentality. We want to live healthier. We want to simplify our lives. And maybe there's a cultural nuance in India. I think we spiritually understand this idea of birth and rebirth and the certain cyclicity and rhythmicity of life. So maybe people aren't interested in immortality and they're okay and more comfortable with the idea of death, but they want it to be a good life through that process, right? So I think you're right. And what our job in the sort of the physician clinical science world is to look at the data and the science and try and tease out, okay, the microbiome of an Indian living in India is very different to even, I have diaspora in Singapore, in the UAE, in London, in New York, etc. Their microbiomes are different because the exposure to the environment, the food they consume, the life stressors, all of that is different. So how do we ensure that we're tailoring the conversation and the intervention to people who are here locally? I think it is changing. It is advancing. Avocado won't work for the average Indian today, but the RDBS will work for them. But how do you make sure it's the right type of rice and dal and roti and all this stuff to make them healthy?
What is RDBS?
Sorry, roti, dal, bhat, shak. My wife is Gujarati, so they have RDBS, which is roti, dal, bhat, shak. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. What, according to, because you just we spoke about Brian visit here, because I have so many questions. If I had Brian sitting opposite me,
yeah,
I would have so many questions for him.
Right.
Number one being that, first of all, are you trying to live healthy or are you just trying to live long? Because if you're just trying to live long, then a person in coma is also living long.
Sure. What a great. Yeah. Nice analogy.
I mean, with modern technology, with the life supports of adrenaline and this and that, you can keep your heart pumping.
Sure.
With a ventilator, you can keep your breath, and your machine will keep showing. I can keep you alive for 500 years.
Yeah.
I mean, is that questionable? But second of all, how can you be so sure about your life? Like you said, there is a till now we've understood that 100, 120 is our benchmark of the expiry date of a human being.
Yeah.
How do you view that? Because there are so many other variables. One plane crash.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Yeah.
You might be Brian Johnson might be doing everything correct, and one earthquake or one tsunami or one plane crash can finish it all.
Sure.
I mean, all of that goes into a tizzy.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always interesting to understand that why don't we like a question which I wanted to ask you was, what is more important, adding life to your years or years to your life?
It's the first, which is life.
Adding life to your years.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, I'm in my early 40s. I try to, or we as a family rather, try to make sure every year counts. That involves, specific time out with the kids. That involves going on a big expedition every year. That involves carefully curating time with our friends, even in our busy lives, etc. Because I'm sure, if I'm lucky enough to get to that 9th decade of life, then I will hold more dear those moments rather than anything else. So I totally agree with you, which is it's just bring more joy back into life, and then maybe as a side effect you can live longer, but bring more joy back.
I mean, this is probably why I wanted to have this podcast, is because everybody's just talking about longevity as number of years.
Sure.
Longevity is not just the number of years.
Yeah.
It's the moments you've actually lived.
Yeah.
For me, I might be a critic. I might sound critical. A Brian Johnson way of living is not living. You're just surviving.
Right.
You're not living.
Yeah.
Because you're doing so many things in a day that you're missing out on family, friends.
Yeah.
Those little moments that you could have actually lived. That when you're on your deathbed, when you look back and you're like, hey, I lived a good life.
Exactly.
Rather than, hey, I lived.